I'd worked with Alan when I was 19 in Sense and Sensibility, and we'd always sort of remained in touch over the years. And so I was sent the script, and it had a sort of a cover letter saying, oh, this is something that Alan is directing. And I knew that Emma Thompson and Phyllida had had a really wonderful time when they'd worked with Alan before as a director. And so I was naturally really intrigued and of course read it, and I just honestly loved the story. I really did just love the story, the simplicity of it, and the writing was very, very beautiful. And it was that really. He puts quite a lot of pressure on himself. I think he puts pressure on himself to just really get things right, and he wants everybody to be happy, and he wants to run a sort of a comfortable, relaxed set, which he has absolutely done. He's very thorough as well, and I'd say that one thing I've really noticed with Alan that I've been tremendously grateful for, actually, is a huge amount of planning and preparation, which which tends to happen anyway on any film, but I think particularly with this, it was very important because we have such a limited period of time. We've only had 8 weeks to shoot it, and it's a period film which is always just more complicated and detailed with costumes and the history and so on. But he's been very specific about his shot choices and how he's wanted things to look and to feel, and actually it's quite good to have that level of structure, because then you can play, within that, and then you find all the freedom and those important sort of spontaneous moments, which sometimes can become a little bit last minute and sort of messy if you don't have that framework. And so I've been really, very impressed and grateful for that. I play Sabine de Barra, and Sabine is actually the only fictitious character in the whole piece. Everyone else really did exist, and their characters are true to their story in the sense that every single individual and the name that goes with them really did exist and really did the job that they do, or played the certain role in King Louis's life that they do in our story. So Sabine is a complete invention on the part of Alison Deegan, the original screenwriter. Now Sabine is a woman in her 30s who lives alone in Paris, and she is a gardener, and she herself says that it was something that she learned to do. It was all she could do for money, and it was something that saw her through some very hard times. So she's a little bit of a loner in a way. We meet her at a point in the story where she's been ticking along quite happily with her life, and is invited to interview with André Lenotre, played by Matthias Schoenaerts, for a position as a gardener who would work hand in hand with him, creating the very famous rockwork grove in the gardens of Versailles, which really does exist. And he has constructed the rather rigid hedged portion of the garden. It's a very beautiful circular garden. It feels like an outdoor ballroom, or sort of an auditorium with a kind of central stage on a lower level. And she is asked to create the other half of the circle, which is a kind of a crazy, bonkers, tiered fountain, essentially, made of rocks and shells, and it's really quite eccentric. But the meeting of these two minds is not just the meeting of these two minds and these two brilliant brains, it's the meeting of two souls, and they ultimately fall in love as the story progresses. It has that wonderful quality, this story, where it gently sort of reveals to you as an audience member what has happened and is happening in these individuals' lives that mean that they're sort of kindred spirits, but you wouldn't think so. She has this kind of very eccentric, almost bohemian side to her, and he is kind of locked in this quite rigid, staid way of thinking. And of course they sort of unlock each other, and I'm always infinitely delighted whenever I read that in characters, because I think it is quite true to life, and I think that we all have the potential as people to disappear into a way of life and just to adjust and adapt to that, and before we know it we go through the motions of life without remembering to live and breathe and laugh and all of those things, and sometimes we can be a bigger person or a different person to the person that we have decided we are. And I think it's very true of these characters that we see things in them as a result of what they feel for each other that is, I think, quite revealing even to themselves. So Sabine and André Lenotre create this glorious garden space together. And it's very clever how Alison Deegan, the writer, has woven the truth of that story and the creation of that garden into a little chaos with the invention of Sabine de Barra, who obviously didn't exist. I haven't actually made a film in the UK since 2002, and it's 2013 now, so to me that feels just so special. And aside from that as well, just being in a period film again. I haven't done that for a very, very, very long time. You know, after day one of being in the corsets, I could have burnt them all because they are absolute agony. But you know, it's just been a really great experience. He's just really honest. He's just very honest. That doesn't mean blunt, and that doesn't mean harsh. He's just completely honest. He'll just say that's definitely a way to try it. Now let's try this way. Oh no, actually that didn't work. What do you think? I mean, he's just he's a very gentle soul, Alan, and he's incredibly kind. So there are no tricks, there are no sort of funny ways in which he directs in order to get an actor to do something without them realising that they're doing it. There's none of that stuff, which I don't ultimately think really works anyway. He's just very, very clean, simple, pure about the process. Which is just lovely, because then it becomes a very sort of open dialogue between everybody. And it's been wonderful to experience him now that I'm older, and I'm 37 now, and I was only 19 when we did Sense and Sensibility, so, you know, we've definitely both changed, but I've probably changed a lot more than him and learned a lot over the years since then. And it's been really wonderful to bring those things that I've learned into this experience, just because I think I've been just probably calmer, I think, as a person, and less nervous. I mean, I remember when I first met Alan Rickman, age 19, I wanted to collapse in a heap, you know, because his voice is so rich and so powerful that it can be really quite intimidating. And I've really realised on this film that he's just so not a scary person at all, you know, but, well, he's been playing Snape forever, so people think he's even more scary. You know, it sounds silly to say, oh, I haven't really noticed that we haven't shot this in France, because it sort of feels in a way as though we have. I mean, and yes, we've been filming in the M25, but we have such incredible palaces here, such beautiful stately homes, and we've been very fortunate to have access to some of those places. And James and Alan, and Ellen Kuras, our DP, you know, they've just been so clever at making it feel like that opulent, decadent French world. And there will be little bits of CGI, so we absolutely get the sense of a Parisian backdrop. I'm a lover of gardens, not particularly a gardener myself, apart from my little herb garden outside the kitchen window. And I think I realised, you know, after looking at gardens of the time, and particularly the gardens of the chateaux of the time, after doing that, I realised that actually the best way for me to feel that I could access Sabine properly was actually just to be in the garden, just to really be in the garden and really pull out the worms and just really, you know, just be doing it, and just to notice how muddy my hands just always were, and there would always be little bits of mud just ingrained somewhere or other. And I'm proud to say that every single night on this film, pretty much, I've gone home and have been digging out the mud, because it just has to live there in her. You know, I hope that people will really take from it what I take from it, which is that it's a profoundly gentle, moving, I think, love story set against an absolutely gorgeous, fascinating backdrop. And I think it's very eye-opening once again, I think, about love and change and people, and how life can throw different experiences at you when you least expect them, and certain things happen that you really didn't think could ever happen to you.